Picture this, you wake up one morning and realize that everything you thought you wanted, the applause, the money, the recognition, it doesn't mean a thing if you don't love the grind that gets you there. See, everybody wants the success story, but nobody wants the late nights, the quiet mornings, the repetitions, the hours of practice that nobody claps for. That's the difference between people who make it and people who almost make it. Too many folks are addicted to the end result, but the real champions, the real legends, they're addicted to the work. They're obsessed with the process. They don't show up because the crowd is watching. They show up because the work itself is the reward. That's what separates good from great. That's what turns dreamers into doers. And if you're sitting here waiting for motivation, waiting for someone to validate you, you're already losing, because motivation fades, applause fades, but obsession with the work, that never fades. That's the only fuel that will carry you through the failures, the setbacks, the silence, and the storms. The truth is simple: get obsessed with the work, not the results. And the results will have no choice but to chase you. Obsession beats motivation, because motivation is like a spark. It flares up for a moment and then it dies out, leaving you in the dark if that's all you're depending on. People wait for motivation like it's some magical fuel that's going to carry them through. But the truth is, motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes based on your mood, your environment, your circumstances. One day you're hyped up, ready to take on the world. And the next day you're tired, you're frustrated, you're distracted, and suddenly that motivation is nowhere to be found. But obsession is different. Obsession doesn't ask you how you feel. Obsession doesn't care if you're tired, if you're broke, if you're stressed. Obsession doesn't ask for permission. It demands action. When you're obsessed, you don't wait for the perfect conditions. You move regardless. You don't think about whether you're motivated. You just know you have to do it because it's in you, and it won't let you rest. Look at the people who've built legacies, not just careers, but legacies that outlived them. And you'll see a pattern. They weren't the most motivated. They were the most obsessed. They didn't need pep talks every morning to remind them to get up. Their vision kept them awake at night. They didn't stop when they hit resistance. They kept pushing because they couldn't imagine stopping. Motivation might get you started, but obsession is what keeps you going when everything else is telling you to quit. When you're motivated, you'll do it as long as it feels good, as long as it's convenient. But when you're obsessed, you'll do it no matter how painful, no matter how inconvenient, no matter how many people don't understand you. Motivation makes you interested. Obsession makes you unstoppable. People confuse obsession with being unhealthy. But the truth is, obsession is just focus at a level most people can't understand. When you're obsessed, you cut out distractions not because someone told you to, but because nothing else matters to you. You're not wasting energy chasing things that don't align with your purpose. Obsession creates tunnel vision, and that tunnel vision is what gets you through the storms. Motivation will vanish the first time you face rejection, the first time you lose, the first time you feel pain. Obsession looks at rejection and says, good, now I know what not to do. Obsession looks at loss and says, I'll be back tomorrow. Obsession looks at pain and says, this is the price, and I'll pay it again and again because the dream is worth it. Ask yourself, how many people do you know who start something with fire in their chest, talking about how motivated they are, and then a few weeks later, they're nowhere to be found? That's motivation. It burns bright, but it burns out fast. Now think about the ones who never stopped, the ones who kept showing up day after day, year after year, until the world had no choice but to notice them. That's obsession. That's the difference. You can't rely on a feeling. You have to rely on discipline. You have to rely on consistency. You have to rely on obsession. Because obsession doesn't wait for the right mood. Obsession doesn't depend on outside energy. Obsession is internal. It's a fire that doesn't go out because it's not about excitement. It's about necessity. You don't do it because you feel like it. You do it because not doing it feels like death to your spirit. That's why obsession beats motivation every time, because motivation is temporary, but obsession is permanent. Motivation is emotional, but obsession is foundational. Motivation is about hype, but obsession is about habit. And when habits build your life, results are just inevitable. Fall in love with practice, not performance, because performance is the moment everyone claps for the part the world sees. But practice is where the greatness is born. People want the lights, the stage, the crowd chanting their name, but they don't want the silence of the gym, the hours in the studio, the sweat that nobody celebrates. The truth is, performance is just the reflection of what you did when nobody was watching. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall back on the level of your preparation. If the practice wasn't there, the performance will expose you. If the practice was everything, the performance will elevate you. You can't cheat the process. You can't hide behind the lights, because when the spotlight hits, it's too late to fake it. The truth comes out in every move, every note, every step. Think about a musician stepping onto a stage, the crowd screaming, the beat dropping, and the song flowing perfectly. The crowd sees magic, but what they don't see is the hours of writing, rewriting, rehearsing, failing, and starting over again. They don't see the late nights when the song didn't sound right, when the voice cracked, when the rhythm was off, but the artist kept grinding anyway. That's the practice. That's the real battle. The performance is just the victory lap. Same with athletes. People see the dunk, the touchdown, the gold medal, but the hours in the weight room, the endless drills, the broken bones, the tears, the doubts, those live in the shadows. Legends are made in the shadows, not on the stage. If you only care about performance, you'll quit when nobody's clapping. If you fall in love with practice, you'll keep showing up when the room is empty. And that's what builds greatness. Performance is temporary. It's one moment, one shot, but practice is forever. Every day is practice. Every rep is practice. Every mistake is practice. That's where you sharpen your craft, where you build muscle memory, where you create habits so strong that performance feels effortless. When you practice long enough, performance becomes second nature. You don't have to think, you don't have to force it. It just flows because you've lived it so many times in silence that it feels like breathing. That's why falling in love with practice matters, because practice is where you get to fail without judgment, where you get to push past your limits without the pressure of the spotlight. In practice, you can stumble, you can miss, you can break down, and that's exactly what prepares you to stand tall when it counts. But here's the problem. Most people chase performance because that's where the recognition lies. They want the applause, the validation, the highlight reel. They post the wins, but never the work. They want to skip the grind and jump straight to the glory. And that's why they fall apart under pressure. If you haven't built a love for the grind, the stage will crush you. The nerves will eat you alive. The fear will freeze you. The mistakes will humiliate you. But when you've lived in practice, when you've embraced the repetition, the pain, the boredom, the discipline, then when the spotlight hits, you're calm, you're ready, because you've been there 1,000 times already in silence. The stage doesn't intimidate you. It just confirms what you already know. You're built for this. Falling in love with practice is also about humility, because practice means admitting you're not perfect yet, admitting you've got work to do, and being willing to go back to the basics again and again. Performance can inflate your ego, but practice keeps you grounded. Performance might make you think you've arrived, but practice reminds you there's always another level. The real ones know that the game never stops. You don't master the craft and then quit. You master it every single day by showing up to practice like it's the first time. That hunger, that obsession with improvement, that's what separates the good from the great, the temporary from the timeless. So when you think about success, stop idolizing the performance and start respecting the practice. Anybody can shine for a moment, but only those who built themselves in the dark can sustain greatness in the light. The crowd may cheer for the performance, but the person you become through practice, that's the real reward. Because when you fall in love with practice, performance becomes easy, results become natural, and success becomes inevitable. Results are byproducts, not the mission, because when you chase outcomes, you're always running in circles. But when you chase mastery, the results show up on their own. Too many people spend their whole lives looking at the scoreboard, checking if they're winning or losing. Instead of actually playing the game, they get distracted by followers, money, applause, or numbers. And when those don't come as fast as they want, they quit. That's the trap. Results are not under your control. You can't control who claps, who buys, who signs the deal, who validates your work. What you can control is the process, the daily effort, the hours nobody sees. The people who make it aren't the ones who obsess over the prize. They're the ones who obsess over the craft. The prize is just the echo of that obsession. When you think about greatness, it's never about people who sat around chasing quick outcomes. Think about inventors, artists, athletes, entrepreneurs. Their results came years, sometimes decades after the work began. They weren't locked in for the outcome. They were locked in because they loved the process of building, creating, practicing, improving. Results are temporary. You win a trophy, it collects dust. You hit a number, it gets old the next day. But the skills you built, the growth you experienced, the strength you gained in the process, that stays with you forever. That's why results can't be the mission, because the mission has to be bigger than something temporary. The mission has to be about mastery, about becoming so good at what you do that the world can't ignore you, about leaving behind a standard that speaks louder than any number ever could. Chasing results also keeps you fragile, because results are external, and anything external can be taken away. If your whole identity is built on outcomes, the moment they disappear, you collapse. If your identity is built on the work, the mastery, the process, nobody can take that from you. A champion doesn't stop being a champion just because the crowd stops cheering, because the champion isn't defined by the applause. They're defined by the discipline it took to earn it. The problem with most people is that they want the result to validate them. They want the world to see them succeed so they can finally feel worthy. But true power is when you know you're worthy because of the work you put in, because of the hours you sacrificed, because of the standard you set for yourself long before the results ever came. Results can trick you too. Sometimes they come fast and you think you've made it. So you stop grinding, you stop learning, you stop pushing. That's why so many people taste success once and then fade away. They thought the result was the mission, and once they got it, they had nothing else to fight for. But the ones who build legacies don't care about just one result. They care about becoming better every single day. They see results as checkpoints, not finish lines. They celebrate for a moment, then get back to work, as the work is the mission. When you understand that results are just byproducts, you stop being controlled by them. You don't get too high when they come. You don't get too low when they don't. You just stay consistent. And that consistency compounds until the results grow so big you can't ignore them. Look at people who failed 1,000 times before they succeeded. If results were the mission, they would have quit after the first failure, the first rejection, the first door slammed in their face. But because mastery was the mission, because growth was the mission, they kept showing up until the results couldn't hide anymore. Results aren't something you chase. They're something you attract by who you become in the process. That's the real game. The world rewards the ones who fall in love with the craft, the ones who go deeper, the ones who give everything even when nothing seems to be coming back. Results are the shadow of the work. They follow, but they can never lead. If you let results lead, you'll always be chasing. If you let mastery lead, results will follow like they're supposed to. So stop letting results control your emotions. Stop checking the scoreboard every second. Stop needing the outcome to prove your worth. Build yourself on the process, on the discipline, on the mastery, because when you do, the results won't just show up. They'll multiply, and they'll keep coming long after the applause has died down. Consistency builds confidence, because every time you show up, every time you keep your word to yourself, you're stacking proof that you can be trusted. Confidence isn't some magic switch that gets turned on when you succeed. It's a byproduct of consistency. It's built in the quiet moments when nobody's around, when you choose to keep going even though you don't feel like it. People look at confident individuals and think they were born that way, but confidence is not genetic. It's earned. It's built 1 rep, 1 hour, 1 action at a time. Every small act of discipline becomes evidence. And the more evidence you have, the more unshakable your belief in yourself becomes. Consistency is like depositing into a bank account of confidence. The more you deposit, the more you can withdraw. When life tests you, think about when you're trying something new. At first, you doubt yourself. You second guess every step. You don't trust your skills. But the more you practice, the more consistent you become, the easier it gets. You start to move with rhythm, with flow, with certainty. Not because you suddenly became gifted, but because repetition built familiarity and familiarity built belief. Confidence is repetition's child. Without consistency, you never get enough reps to believe in yourself. That's why people who stop and start, who quit every time it gets tough, never truly feel confident. They're stuck in a loop of doubt because they don't have enough proof to silence the voice in their head. Consistency is the proof that drowns out self-doubt. Every time you show up, you're telling yourself, I'm the type of person who doesn't quit. I'm the type of person who follows through. I'm the type of person who can be trusted. Confidence isn't about pretending you're great. It's about knowing you put in the work to back it up. It's the calmness that comes from preparation. The certainty that comes from thousands of unseen hours. When you're inconsistent, your mind knows it. And deep down, you can't lie to yourself. You can tell the world you're confident, but if you've skipped the work, that doubt will eat you alive when the pressure is on. That's why consistency matters, because it eliminates that doubt. It replaces it with evidence. You don't have to hype yourself up with empty words. You can remind yourself of the work you've already done, the times you've already proven you can handle it. That's real confidence, and it can't be faked. Consistency also builds momentum, and momentum is confidence in motion. When you've been showing up day after day, you start to feel unstoppable because you know you're moving forward no matter what. Even on bad days, you've built enough momentum to carry you through. That's the secret. Confidence isn't about feeling good all the time. It's about trusting yourself to show up even on the worst days. Consistency trains you to push through resistance, and every time you do, your confidence grows stronger because you've proven once again that you can handle adversity. Over time, this builds an unshakable belief that no matter what comes your way, you'll figure it out because you've done it before. The beautiful part about consistency is that it compounds. One workout doesn't make you strong. One practice doesn't make you a master. One decision doesn't change your life, but when you stack them daily, they accumulate into something massive. And as they stack, your confidence multiplies. You go from wondering if you can do it to knowing you can, because you've got hundreds of days of proof behind you. That's why consistent people move differently. They're not cocky, they're certain, and certainty is what the world mistakes for confidence. But it's not arrogance, it's evidence. It's years of evidence carried in their spirit. On the flip side, inconsistency destroys confidence. Because every time you quit, you're teaching yourself not to believe in your own word. You break promises to yourself, and each broken promise becomes evidence against you. That's why inconsistent people are insecure, because they can't trust themselves. They want to believe, but deep down they know they've quit too many times before. Consistency is the antidote. It repairs that relationship with yourself. It rebuilds trust one action at a time. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep showing up, because even small wins stack up into massive confidence over time. So when you think about confidence, don't look for shortcuts. Don't wait for some magical moment when you feel ready. Build it through consistency. Show up every single day, stack the reps, collect the evidence. That's how you go from doubting yourself to walking with certainty. Because consistency doesn't just create results. It creates the kind of confidence that no one can take away from you, detached from applause, attached to growth. Because if your drive is fueled by claps, cheers, likes, and validation, you'll burn out the moment the noise fades. Applause is temporary. It's conditional. It's fickle. One day people love you. The next day they forget you. The next day they criticize you. If your sense of worth and progress is tied to that, you'll forever be on an emotional roller coaster that you can't control. Growth, on the other hand, is steady, internal, and real. It's not about what people see. It's about who you're becoming when nobody's paying attention. When you detach from applause, you stop performing for others and start building for yourself. And that's where real power comes from. Applause can be a trap because it creates a false sense of arrival. The moment people cheer for you, you start thinking you've made it. You start slowing down. You start living off past victories instead of creating new ones. Too many talented people peak early because they let applause convince them the work was done. But growth has no finish line. Growth says, I'm grateful for the recognition, but I know there's another level to reach. Growth keeps you hungry, keeps you humble, keeps you in the game long after the noise dies down. Because the truth is, the crowd doesn't care about your consistency. They only care about your highlight reel. You have to care about the process, because the process is what feeds your soul and shapes your identity. Think about the people who chase applause. They're constantly checking for likes, waiting for compliments, desperate for approval. Their mood swings with the reaction they get. If people clap, they feel worthy. If people are silent, they feel invisible. That's no way to live, because it makes you a prisoner to outside opinions. You lose yourself trying to please everyone, forgetting why you started in the first place. But when you attach yourself to growth, you're free from that prison. You stop asking, do they see me? Do they approve of me? And start asking, am I better than I was yesterday? Did I grow? Did I learn? Did I push myself forward? That's the only scoreboard that matters. And it's one you can control every single day. Detaching from applause also makes you resilient, because the same people who cheer for you today can turn on you tomorrow. Fame, recognition, validation, those are shaky foundations. If you build your confidence on them, it'll crumble the second the applause stops. But if you build your confidence on growth, nothing shakes you. The criticism doesn't break you. The silence doesn't discourage you, because you know your value isn't tied to what others think. It's tied to the work you're putting in, the progress you're making, the person you're becoming. That's the kind of foundation that lasts a lifetime. Growth is private before it's public. And when you learn to value the private progress more than the public praise, you become unstoppable. And let's be real, applause is addictive. It feels good. Everyone wants to be recognized. Everyone wants to be appreciated. But when that becomes your fuel, you start chasing the wrong things. You'll start performing for claps instead of pursuing purpose. You'll make choices that please the crowd instead of choices that build your future. You'll stop innovating and start repeating yourself because you're scared of losing approval. That's how potential dies, not from failure, but from comfort and recognition. Growth breaks that cycle. Growth forces you to step into the uncomfortable, to push into areas where nobody claps yet, because progress doesn't always look glamorous at first. Growth is lonely, but that's why it's powerful, because it's shaping you in ways the world won't understand until later. When you attach to growth, you win even when nobody notices. Every small skill you sharpen, every weakness you overcome, every limit you stretch, that's victory. And the funny thing is, when you focus on growth long enough, the applause eventually comes anyway. But by the time it does, you won't even be dependent on it, because you'll already know your worth. You'll see the applause for what it really is: noise, not nourishment. Nourishment comes from growth, from knowing you become stronger, smarter, sharper, more resilient. That's the reward nobody can take away from you. So detach from the need to be seen, detach from the need to be validated, detach from the noise of approval. Attach yourself to growth, to becoming the best version of yourself, to mastering your craft, to building habits and skills that last long after the clapping stops, because applause is borrowed, but growth is owned. Applause fades, but growth compounds. Applause can be taken away, but growth is yours forever. The journey makes you unshakable, because when you embrace the process instead of just the destination, you build a type of strength that can't be broken by setbacks, criticism, or delays. Most people only want the outcome. They want the trophy, the recognition, the quick reward, but they don't want to walk through the miles it takes to get there. The journey is where you get tested, where you struggle, where you fail and rise again. And that's exactly what makes you unshakable. If life handed you success the moment you asked for it, you wouldn't have the strength to hold it. You wouldn't have the maturity, the resilience, or the wisdom to sustain it. It's the journey that prepares you, the journey that builds you into someone capable of handling the weight of success. The journey teaches you patience. At the start, you're excited, you're motivated, you want everything now. But the longer you walk the path, the more you realize nothing great comes overnight. You learn to wait, to endure, to grind day after day with no immediate payoff. That patience is what separates the temporary from the timeless. When you embrace the journey, you stop rushing for quick wins and start building foundations that last. The journey slows you down enough to teach you lessons the destination could never teach. And when you've learned patience, you become unshakable, because delays don't discourage you. They prepare you. The journey also builds resilience. Every time you fail, every time you face rejection, every time you get knocked down, you gain another layer of toughness. You learn that failure isn't the end. It's part of the process. The more obstacles you overcome, the stronger you become. And after a while, setbacks don't scare you anymore. They're just part of the game. That resilience makes you dangerous, because while others quit when things get hard, you keep moving. You don't fold under pressure, you rise in it. And that strength isn't something you get from a result. It's something you earn only through the grind of the journey. The journey strips away your ego. When you're walking the road to greatness, you're going to face humiliation, losses, and moments where nothing seems to be working. Those moments humble you. They remind you that you're not untouchable, that you still have more to learn. And as painful as that feels, it's a gift, because humility is what keeps you grounded when success finally comes. Without the journey, success would inflate your ego and blind you. But with the journey, success becomes a reflection of growth instead of a replacement for it. You appreciate it more because you know the price you paid to earn it. The journey forces you to grow in ways you didn't expect. Maybe you thought you were chasing one goal, but along the way you discovered skills you didn't know you had, strength you didn't think you possessed, and perspectives you never imagined. That growth is priceless, because it transforms you into someone you never would have become if success had come easy. The obstacles, the detours, the struggles, they all shape you into someone wiser, stronger, more capable. The destination gives you a prize, but the journey gives you transformation. And transformation is what makes you unshakable, because no matter what happens, nobody can take that growth away from you. The journey also teaches gratitude. When you've crawled through the mud, climbed out of the darkness, and fought for every inch of progress, you don't take success lightly. You appreciate every win. No matter how small, because you know the cost, gratitude keeps you steady, it keeps you focused, it keeps you from losing yourself when things finally turn in your favor. Without gratitude, success feels empty. With gratitude, even the small steps feel like victory. And gratitude comes from the journey, from remembering the nights you almost gave up, from remembering the moments when nobody believed in you, but you kept going anyway. The beauty of the journey is that it makes you unstoppable even when you haven't reached the destination yet. Because once you've learned patience, resilience, humility, growth, and gratitude, you're already winning. You're already unshakable. You don't need to prove anything to anyone because the journey itself has given you strength, character, and perspective that no outcome could ever give. That's why people who embrace the journey last longer, go further, and shine brighter than those who only chase the destination. The destination may reward you once, but the journey rewards you every single day by shaping you into someone who cannot be broken. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this. You can't cheat the grind. You can't skip the process. You can't fast forward your way to greatness. The results you want, the life you dream about, the success you imagine every single night, they don't show up because you wished for them. They show up because you became obsessed with the work it takes to earn them. Every legend you look up to, every name etched in history, every person who built something from nothing, they didn't fall in love with the trophy. They fell in love with the sweat, the pain, the craft, the endless hours when no one was clapping. That's where the magic is. The real flex isn't the destination. It's the discipline. It's showing up day after day when nobody sees you, when nobody cares, when nobody believes. If you give your heart to process, the results will come. And when they do, you'll realize they were never the real prize. The real prize was the person you became while putting in the work. So I'll leave you with this. Don't wait for perfect timing. Don't wait for applause. Don't wait for anyone's permission. Start, grind, repeat, and trust that the work will pay you back in ways results never could. Good luck on your journey. Keep pushing, keep building, and thank you for listening. Now go put in the work.